and welcome to the program. Charles Moscowitz here. Thanks for joining me, everyone. George Santos is my guest. George is a candidate for the U.S. House in New York State, bordering on Queens, Nassau County, and Long Island. George, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Charles. It's a great pleasure to be on and have an opportunity to speak to your audience.
So, George, before we go into the great horse race questions, give me, if you don't mind, a quick elevator talk of you about your candidacy and why you would contend that it's viable this year.
Well, elevator pitches are usually 30 seconds. So the simplest way to put it is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's why we fought to take this country and we claim independence from Great Britain. And I think there's no better way to put it out there for people to understand what I'm about.
How is your actual, as you say, infrastructure? I mean, do you have a street operation? Because that's what it really takes to win a congressional race. You have to have people who go door to door, who put up hold signs, and who have bumper stickers and all the rest.
So yeah, that's actually a great question. Since I decided to start running, I made it a point that in order for us to be victorious in this seat, we're going to have to build an army of volunteers, an army of voters, an army of donors. It's grassroots to the very most textbook definition of the meaning of the word. So we've started already to go out there. I know COVID stopped us a little bit in our tracks, but we've built and amassed an amazing group of volunteers who are so eager to get, the word out. I like to look at it this way. People are eager to work with me and with this campaign because I am exactly what a lot of Americans want to be. They want to attain the American dream. That's why people migrate here. And I think that people see that in me and they believe in it. And they just want to see me go there to make it attainable for everyone else.
Talk a little bit about your background and how you arrived at this point.
So I am first generation born American. I was born and raised in Jackson Heights, Queens in New York City, which is famously AOC's district.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Both my parents are immigrants. My mother was an immigrant from Belgium. My father is an immigrant from Brazil. They both came to this country with distinct ideas of what they were going to do. They ended up meeting in school, and the rest is history. Essentially, my parents fled devastated economies, both in Europe and in South America. At the time, Brazil was even fighting a revolution against communism and socialism. So that's why a large part of my campaign has been #StopSocialism, because I know a thing or two about socialism from family stories. Growing up in Queens, very middle class, blue collar family, I always wanted more. And my mother would always say, sky's the limit, very vague statement. If you put your mind to it, work hard, it pays out. Well, I graduated college with absolute no debt after working and studying for 4 straight years. I worked full-time, studied full-time, paid my school, graduated with no debt because debt wasn't an option for me. I was middle class. If I got myself into debt, only God knows when I'd be out of it. So I had a very interesting 4 years of very little sleep, a lot of determination and dedication, and not a lot of socializing. Forward from that, started my career relatively young, started at Citigroup and worked my way up to command, chain of command. And I've done tours where I've worked for Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, Linkbridge Investors, and now I'm currently with Harbor City Capital. I've worked with Turkish-based Met Global. So I have a lot of international and domestic experience in the private equity, hospitality, and mergers and acquisition space. So I'm not shy to how the economy works and how to build and make money. That said, I'm very eager to put all my private sector experience into Congress, into the public sector, to better, policies and to reduce regulation that empower companies to hire more and grow. And that pretty much sums it all up. First generation born American, very successful businessman in Manhattan, and And I'm not shy of it. I think it's something to be proud of. I earned,
Absolutely.
honestly.
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, this is, I mean, only for the far left would that be something that you'd want to somehow, for weird reasons, want to shy away from. I mean, we all want to have a opportunity to be who we are in this country. And we want to have an economy that, in a sense, steps out of the way and lets us be who we are. And you seem to know a lot about economy. What do you think is the appropriate response on the part of the federal government to the COVID crisis?
Well,
You know,
on the
there's
COVID crisis, the best way to power the economy is to put money back in the pockets of consumers. Consumers are people who are working every day, me, you, all of us, right? So the payroll tax holiday is a great starting point, but it shouldn't be the only one. I know there's a lot of mixed feelings about the executive order that was just signed on by President Trump. I don't want to get into it. I am not the president of the United States,
right.
and I'll leave that to him, his decision. Although I do really like a lot the holiday on the payroll tax, because that puts more money essentially into that's 14%, right, of federal taxes that are kept now in the pockets of Americans, and they put that into the economy. It goes instantly right back into the.
Oh yeah,
We
absolutely.
all, I'm sorry.
It's leaving money at the source of production, the worker,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
it adds to the paycheck. It also reduces the cost of businesses in terms of matching funds, so they're allowed to hire people, bring people back in. The moratorium on rent foreclosure is a good and moral thing to do right now because people are struggling and having a problem paying their rent. As well, the delay of student loan payments maybe till the end of the year. These are all right things to do at this time of crisis, and also extending some of the unemployment extra benefits puts capital in the economy, which results in consumption, and plus it protects families that are dealing with a severe dislocation. I mean, I don't understand why this is something that's debated. I think the reason the Democrats we are refusing to go along with it is because they want to add in all sorts of things that have nothing to do with COVID and have everything to do with spending money on stealing the election with their phony ballots and all these other programs. Um, what say you?
Well, I'll piggyback off of you, and I'll add this. I think that everything that President Trump has done so far during this crisis has been absolutely wonderful as far as keeping people, with money in their pockets. I think that the CARES Act was a phenomenal accomplishment when it came down, and it was probably one of the best bipartisan works. Although it did take some time to make some agreements. It initiated with the dream list of the Green New Deal, but we worked it down into a more realistic package. I just hope that we can establish something just as solid throughout the end of the year so that the American people don't go into the ballot with that in mind of, oh, the president this or the president that. Because remember, the guy's been in office for 4 years, will be in office for 4 years by the end of this year. And he's going to be solely judged in the last 8 months of his presidency. They're not going to remember record unemployment. They're not going to record low unemployment. They're not going to remember record high economy. None of that's going to matter. What's going to matter is the last 8 years. And I think that we need to make sure that everybody remembers that the last 8 months, forgive me, was unprecedented due to a global pandemic. And we need to look forward and see, well, this is where Donald Trump placed us prior to this pandemic. That's where he'll take us and beyond after the pandemic is over. And I believe that the pandemic has a deadline. It is November 3rd, 2020.
Everyone is saying that. That's unless, of course, he's reelected, in which case it might be
Then I
November
think it's
3rd,
going to linger for
2024.
years. Oh boy, I don't want to live in a world with
No, I know. And I think that already people are moving on from it in terms of their actions. But we've seen in recent weeks, if not this past month, um, outbreaks of violence in major American cities, including New York City, today in Chicago, where you have the phenomena of black neighborhoods being burned, black businesses being looted, black people being murdered, and all in the name of allegedly helping black people. And also this agenda to remove the police department, which is only adding to more violence and more of a breakdown of law and order, primarily in minority neighborhoods. What do you say with regard to what to do about that?
Well, I'll start off with I'm a back to blue guy all the way. I've never shied away from it. I've always been a back to blue. I also am a all lives matter type of guy. I come from a biracial family. Imagine if I said Black Lives Matter, my mother would look at me and say, "What about me?" you know, I cover my
Of course.
not my mother.
Well, I mean, we all think Black Lives Matter. We just don't know if we agree with the organization Black Lives
Yeah.
Matter, which is apparently doesn't care that much about Black lives, or else they'd care about the two Black police officers who were murdered recently, and other Black citizens who are being murdered by these thugs and these terrorists in major cities. Not to mention businesses burned and poverty spread. So, of course, Black Lives Matter. It's just again, we don't support a this communistic group that is engaging in terrorism and aligning itself with other like-minded groups. Um, yeah,
Yeah, Charles. I mean, I look at it this way. I'm Roman Catholic. I believe every life matters. I mean, I'm a big animal lover. I mean, I'm not vegan or any of that stuff, but I love animals. I cherish human life. I respect human life. As a conservative, I have opposed the death penalty in a very outspoken manner. I don't think it's up to us to judge, right? People commit crimes, we shove them into a jail, throw the key away. You don't need to kill them. Yeah, and people get very like, oh, support them. And look, that's God's decision, not our decision. I look at it that way. I don't believe in taking anybody's life. Now, when it comes down to Black Lives Matter, it's a Marxist, socialist, communistic organization. That's all it is. Because if Black lives really mattered, they'd be worried about reducing Black on Black crime, which is tenfold higher than police on Black crime or white on Black crime. So what's going on with the Black on Black? New York City has seen a surge in gun shooting, unprecedented, higher than the 80s when Mayor Dinkins was mayor. And he was an absolutely disaster.
horrible.
It took Giuliani 8 years to fix it. And then it took Mike Bloomberg 12 years to keep it up. Mayor Bill de Blasio is the most disastrous mayor in the history of the United States. I can't think of one mayor in history, other than Mayor Dinkins, Dave Dinkins, that was just as bad, if not, Bill makes himself worse. And the city is riddled in crime, graffiti. We're seeing things that have been extinct. Prostitution is back. You're seeing solicitation for sex in the streets. You're seeing all sorts of stuff that were eradicated from the city. And what's next? The plague? I mean, they've already brought us a modern day plague. And to hear Bill de Blasio, and AOC say that this is all due to unemployment is just insulting. It is insulting. We've had higher unemployment rates in this country before. And quite frankly, nobody was looting, nobody was burning down cities, and Black on Black crime wasn't something common.
Now, George, are the people of New York City waking up and New York State? I mean, to this disaster. I mean, not to mention that you had Governor Andrew Cuomo back in March issue an executive order putting COVID-19 positive people into nursing homes, resulting in the deaths of possibly thousands of people. He's never explained that policy. He tried to blame President Trump. It turns out that in fact, Trump had not supported that policy. He had overridden federal policy with regard to nursing homes to do this. It's one of these things. It's inexplicable to me that he would do something like that. It's criminal. Are people in New York State and City waking up to this very uh, counterproductive, to put it mildly, agenda by the Democrats in your state?
Well, the way I look at it, north of the Hudson Valley has already woken up, right? They predominantly vote conservative. It's really getting people under the Hudson Valley, below the Hudson Valley line to vote conservative. Although we have the east end of Long Island, who has predominantly been conservative. We have Representative Zeldin. We have outgoing retiring Representative King, potentially keeping that seat with my good colleague, Andrew Garbarino, state assemblyman here. But the way I look at it is New York City has become ripe ground for Republicans. I strongly believe that if we work on all the deficits that the Democrats are leaving behind, we will go back to having a Republican mayor, and we're potentially going to flip 2 to 3 Republican seats in this blue city. It is possible. It is doable. A lot of people tell me, what's the path to going back to the House, to going back to the majority in the House? I say New York State, California State, and Texas State, and also New Jersey. But New York State is the path back to the House. We can pick up 3 lost seats, and we can flip 3, then create 3 upsets in this state.
Oh, that would be amazing. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen in my own state of Massachusetts, only because the Republicans here are so decimated that they don't even put up a candidate, really. But New York is something else. I mean, it's competitive, it's politically alive. There's real, people have, there's a, I don't want to be too critical of Massachusetts, but, people up here are kind of brain dead. I mean, I don't mean that to be too derogatory sounding, but, there isn't a lot of thought process upstairs, if you know what I mean. It's all just kind of genuflecting and marching along. But I think New York and California even are places where people are thinking, and there is some awareness of self-interest, maybe because the governments there are so bad that people are waking up. I get the sense you seem to be saying that from someone who is out there, who's meeting people on the street, and we can only hope.
Well, the only way I look at it is, come November 3rd, if everything pans out the way I believe it's going to pan out, I'm going to write a nice thank you letter to Governor Gavin Newsom and Governor Andrew Cuomo, along with Mayor Bill de Blasio, because they're going to really give it to us, because the way they're doing it isn't working. As you mentioned earlier, Governor Cuomo has probably one of the most disastrous executive orders throughout the pandemic, which cost the lives of some 30,000 plus elder people in nursing homes. Obviously, that number is still to be determined. So give or take, as they say, tomato, tomato. But people died, and there's nothing cute or anything, demure about that. And we need to work to investigate immediately what caused such a large scale death within a very sensitive age group in nursing homes, where we knew the virus would be deadly if broken out. So yes, I call for an investigation to Governor Cuomo every single day. I wake up and I say, where's that investigation, Attorney General Bill Barr? And I put it out on social media. I've sent letters. I'm just standing by waiting for that, because we must investigate this. This was slaughter in nursing homes. And
it is completely immoral. And I would hope that people who lost a mother or a father or a grandparent, they would be up in arms at this point. We're talking a lot of people who would want answers. And I just, I hope there's a reaction to that on the street, because this needs at least an explanation. All right, George Santos, listen, I want you to mention to my listeners and viewers where they can get involved in your campaign, where they can help, where they can get more information.
Well, you can go on to www.georgeforny.com, and that's george4ny.com, or you can follow me on social media at Santos4 Congress, and I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Excellent. Any chance AOC is going to be challenged?
AOC is being challenged by my good colleague John Cummings, who is giving her the run for her money, and we should. That's a race to watch. NY14.
I'd like to see some debates.
Oh, she doesn't debate. Remember that, Charles?
Yeah, of course not. She doesn't come across well in those situations.
She doesn't like debating.
No. All right, George. Listen, thanks again for joining me, and best of luck to you. Let's stay in touch.
Thank you for having me. Take care, Charles.
All right.